For the full episode, check out Real Dudes Podcast on iTunes.
So now, moving on to our next game from Tequila Works, we have RiME, which came out earlier this year. Fellas, 2 of us have finished it, 2 of us are in the middle of it. So the 2 that have not finished it, what do you guys think so far, and where are you?
I am still on the second chapter, entitled Anger. I'm on the 3rd windmill without giving any spoilers, and am loving the game so far.
Kyle?
Let's see. I am, I guess the second chapter also. I found all the, was it little foxes or what? I think they remind me of Eevee from Pokemon. And I just started the second chapter where you cross the bridge and you get in touch with that little fox animal, and then I saved it there and stopped. As far as my thoughts, the game reminded me of kind of like Zelda, just the environment. I don't know why, it seemed like this big fantasy open world, and I loved the music. It reminded me of a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was especially
awesome.
Especially when you go to the shrines or whatever, and you get those little sparkling wisps. I don't know what they're called, and just the music just goes into full Disney mode. And you see this thing floating in the air back to the statue. Definitely love that. What about you guys that finished it? You have a whole different opinion.
Yeah, the 2 who have actually finished the entire game. What are your thoughts?
Andrew, how about you go first?
Okay, gosh, it's a big question.
I know.
For all of you Scott Pilgrim
There's so
fans,
many
it's a
things
big
to talk
question.
about.
Without spoiling it for everyone and us too.
Well, I don't know that it can classify spoilers if it came out in February, am I right?
Yeah, true.
Heyo.
Can you give us a little cliff note about what the whole game is about? Because I only know very little bits, just so.
Carrington, you seem to be well versed on that particular aspect, so if you want to knock that one out, and then I'll start.
Sure. So the game itself, you're basically a little boy on this island trying to, figure things out. But the whole game itself is actually a metaphor for the 5 stages of grief. I can't remember what it starts with.
Denial.
Denial. Yep. Thank you. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance. Mm-hmm. And you certainly see that throughout the game, which I absolutely loved. Even though at the end of it, I was just like, gosh, what am I going to do with my life now? Kind of thing, like one of those feelings. But I thought it was very clever. So that's the Cliff Notes version of what the game itself is about.
Yeah. Now, I would say I'll definitely echo what Kyle just said. I thought that the music was absolutely a high point of it. Fantastic. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There was a few parts where I had goosebumps. Okay, it was creeping me out. I'm not going to, like I said, and there was definitely, like I said, also there's a lot of whimsical aspect to it too. So, the music was just great from start to finish. Definitely one of the things to hang your hat on. No, as far as, it reminded me a crap ton of Last Guardian, which I have played.
Oh, jealous.
So it wasn't. My wife, she's played through Last Guardian as well, and then she just started into RiME after I beat it. And she was like, "Oh, that's probably just going to be Last Guardian knockoff," but she seemed to like it for RiME, that is, for for what it was, and seemed to be enjoying it so far. And it had a lot of similarities for sure. But it was definitely its own unique experience, kind of like Carrington was saying. The graphical style reminded me like a lot of Wind Waker, from like I said, kind of making that Zelda reference you brought up, Kyle.
Yep.
So no, I saw a lot of different aspects from games that I absolutely have loved throughout the years. But it still had its own unique twist and its own unique voice. So I definitely enjoyed it. Without getting into too many particulars, I guess we'll feel Cody out here on just how strongly he will feel betrayed when we take this. Because I know you and I, Carrington, have just briefly discussed some of our thoughts about the ending and some of the deeper aspects of the game. So I guess I'll hold my tongue until you tell me that I can move forward a little bit more.
I know. I want to talk about like the deeper meanings.
Yeah,
of
I
the
want to talk.
game.
There's a few aspects within it that I'd really like to discuss, but I don't want to like shatter friendships or anything.
Go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
There you go.
I might hate you, but go for it.
All right,
Okay.
Carrington, I'll let you start and so we'll see how mad he gets.
Hey guys, again, we go into some more spoilers. If you don't want to listen to this, go ahead and skip to the 30-minute, 50-second mark.
All right, so the ending, which gets really crazy towards the end. So every time you finish one of those chapters, you get a quick flashback of what's happening and what brought the kid to that island. And so you find out that he was on this boat with his dad, and his dad falls off, and then he ends up grabbing the cape and puts on the cape, which you see throughout the game that the kid wears. When in reality, it was the dad who lost his son.
Oh.
And his son is going through all of these things as he's dying. So he's trying to... Eventually he accepts himself as dying. Yeah, it gets pretty deep and heavy towards the end.
Yeah, well, I don't think he was dying. He like pretty much died as soon as he hit the water, or pretty nearly after, drowned very shortly thereafter. And it's just him, basically his whole afterlife experience. Rather, how he's going to, whether he's going to just basically accept what has happened and ascend, I guess, for lack of a better term, or if he's going to just basically wallow in the stages of grief and never really fully move past it.
And I must say, during the Depression, I almost cried, because there's a point where the kid pretty much gives up, and he just basically just lets his entire emotions and the music, and it just boom, and it's just like, whoa. That was the part where I really did get goosebumps, just because of how emotional that scene was. Because everything leading up to that part, you're just kind of it's just another chapter to me. I don't know if that's how you felt, Andrew. Just going through different puzzles and seeing things. I mean, there was some emotional stuff that happens before then, but it didn't really catch me until that moment.
I'd say that's fair. About the only other thing I'd say that grabbed me before that, other than just being generally a fun experience, like you said, good puzzles and nice scenery. The whole section with the specters, or whatever you would term you'd want to use for them.
Oh gosh, yes, they're so creepy.
They creeped me out. I mean, that definitely, like, they weren't, necessarily. Well, there was that one point, where they are actually actively attacking you if you get close to them, and that kind of creeped me out a little bit. But no, definitely, like that point. To that point, yeah, I'd say that was probably certainly the climax of the game. I would think for a lot of people. But when I was wanting to talk about, I know you, Carrington, you and I talked about you see statues of people kind of just frozen in any given pose throughout the game, and they become more and more frequent as you get closer towards the end. And I think that Carrington and I both thought that how that all tied into it towards the end was pretty interesting. Mind if I go into that, Carrington?
No, go right ahead, because I wanted to bring that out because it is so fantastic and interesting.
Yeah, I like definitely, because, well, like I said, there's you notice those statues, and then towards the end, when there's a brief moment where the boy does basically give up hope, and it appears as though he's just going to refuse to accept what has happened and basically just kind of wallow in his fate forevermore. And so he briefly does turn into just like one of those statues that you see scattered throughout the whole story. And except he ends up ultimately breaking out of that. But then it got me and Carrington to wondering, that's those faceless specters, if that's not essentially the essence of those people that are frozen in that statue's form, and that basically they're just wandering aimlessly throughout this spiritual or afterlife landscape, essentially, unwilling to accept their fate and unwilling to move on into to move to that acceptance stage and go into the light for like the boy ultimately does. And so just kind of interesting, they basically just is that in fact the case, that those specters are just someone who gave into despair, and those statues are basically just the husk of their former body, and that's really their actual essence, and what made them is just, like I said, what's that floating around and making trouble for the boy throughout the story, especially later on.
And one thing I also thought interesting, the more I thought about it, when you first see them, you don't see a lot of them, which is in the anger chapter. Mm-hmm. They're around and there's plenty of them, but as you progress through each stage, they get more and more common, especially in the depression
true.
stage. There's so many people, or so many I guess lost souls, as we're going to call them, that
That's
were
good,
there,
yeah.
which I think is, I think a lot of people in general, when they are going through the 5 stages of grief, that's probably the hardest one to get through. And I think that was really neat to see. It was just something the
good
more I
point.
thought about,
Well, and then
I noticed.
it was the hardest thing for the boy to get through as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good point.
Because he did give up for a brief moment.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
I'm gonna hop off here and go play right now because this sounds like super incredible.
It really is. Like,
Yeah.
I would highly recommend everyone, you and Cody, to just go ahead and finish
I'm
it.
pretty sure that like Cody has
It's a
muted
great
us at this
journey.
point.
Probably.
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't even.
See, I hate that I have to work tomorrow morning because I would stay up all night and
You just
play
wanna stay
this
up
and
and play
finish
it.
this game.
Yeah.
But I can't do that, unfortunately.
No, it's a really fun game.
It also sounds like a Disney movie. It sounds like that they could make that into a Disney movie just because like every Disney movie has something really sad and terrible in it. That sounds like what this game is.
But I will say, though, this does not have a necessarily happy ending, per se.
Okay.
It's not
I
it's
would
not a
say-
sad ending, but it's not happy.
Well, because that is another thing. Kind of, I guess we've spoiled enough at this point. We can't make anybody any madder than they already are. But the ultimate, I guess you will say, the boy's reward. I would classify it as that. Is at the very end, it goes to a cutscene of his father in their house, basically just kind of holding what's left of his son's jacket, I believe. If that was not correct, Carrington.
That's what it looked like, yeah.
And anyway, and basically you could just see he was kind of misty-eyed and wasn't. You could tell he was concerned about his son. Is he alive? Should I be looking for him? All these kind of questions you can see clearly going through his mind. And goes into the boy's room, and then once the son has just very recently, basically just a moment ago, accepted the fact this is what has happened to me and I'm okay with it. Then he actually appears in a ethereal, spectral form, basically just like a vision almost, and basically his father gets to see, that he's there and that he has passed away. So it provides some closure, really. So that was kind of beautiful, I think, in a lot of ways, that the father was able to get some closure and to find out what had actually happened to his son and see that his son was at peace with his situation, for better, for worse, whatever it might be.
Agreed. And I also think that without the music, none of it would be nearly as powerful as the game is trying to make you feel these emotions as you play.
No, I could brag about the musical score of that game all night.
Fantastic.
If you had to pick out a single aspect of it, I would honestly say that's probably the highlight of it. It's got a lot of good points, but that would probably be my top. And I'm not typically a person who I would usually go. I'm usually a plot or a graphics guy, so it's rare for me to put music on top.
Oh, that opening sequence,
So,
man,
yeah.
was just incredible. I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
Yeah. So going on to the music, if you are like me who collects all the collectibles in a game like this, there is a collectible called the Lullaby Shell, and I believe there's 5 or 6 of them. And then when put together, it creates like another beautiful harmony, like Disney type song to it. And now that you said the whole concept behind this is death, it made the Lullaby shells even more depressing. But I highly recommend you guys look those up, because those are incredible. I have 2 of them, and it's by far, that segment is better than anything I've heard in the game so far.
No, I'm
Okay.
going to do that.
I'm going to probably look it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also a slightly small, more emotional, different ending if you get all the collectibles I was reading.
Well, Cody, you have to tell us what it is.
Yeah, he can in a future episode, because I'm not about that completionist stuff. There was a time I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
And like, no, I don't really care if I collect 100 flags or whatever.
Just real quick, because I meant to mention this when we were talking about Tacoma. How many gamer points did you guys get at the end of the game that
gosh.
finished it?
I have no idea and don't care.
Okay.
So here's the thing. I played on PC. I played
Okay.
RiME and Tacoma both on PC. I got achievements on Steam, but
Yeah, I got
doesn't
some
assign
achievements,
gamer
but
points.
I'm not
I don't know.
super OCD about gamer points. I think it's kind of nice, but at the end of that game, and usually at the end of games, I think you get maybe like 50 points for completing it. I got 400 points.
Good night.
Like,
Wow.
I don't know. It's not something super great, but it just kind of caught me off guard when I saw that little achievement notification come across the TV. Sorry for taking you off subject, but that just reminded me of it.
So if I were to give RiME a score, I'd give it not Kraken because it wasn't perfect.
I would say whiskey sour. That comes to
Ooh,
my mind.
I like that. A nice whiskey sour, yeah. Which is a fantastic drink.
Yeah.
Fantastic, yeah, not perfect, but definitely in like, you know, my top 5 or 10.
Nice. Yeah.
For sure. And between the two games, as far as indie game of the year, RiME has my vote at the moment, but that can easily
Yeah.
change.
Like, out of everything that you've played so far?
I said indie game, not
Right, no, I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, right now all the indie games that I've played so far that were released this year, RiME will have to take my vote at the moment.
It's got well, RiME has a lot of polish. It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very surprised about that. So yeah, everyone check out rather Tequila Works RiME. We all highly recommend it. It's fantastic, and there's not enough words to describe how great this game is, really. It's just an experience that I would recommend everyone to go through, even though we just spoiled the entire thing. Like, visually and audio-wise, like, you won't experience anything else at the moment, so...
Well, and then the puzzles are really good, too. I mean,
The puzzles are actually really good. They're not
cracking
super
that.
hard, but they're not,
No.
like, super easy either. And they're
Yeah,
fun
I'd
to
say
go
that's
through.
fair.
It's a nice little twist to it, too, because I like that he used his voice for everything,
Yeah.
which was really
I
cool.
thought that was pretty neat, too.
So we're going to take a quick break before we get into some indie news and check on out. Enjoy.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and super smash that like button. And if you would like to be kept up to date on all of our videos, be sure to subscribe. Remember, keep your friends close, but your games closer. And as always, have a rad day.